Improving the Smart Walks by Abby and Sonia.
Sarah Harar.
And Ellie O'Brien.
So, what exactly is Smart Walks? Smart Walks is a commonly used tool for teacher evaluations. It poses questions such as, does the work assigned to students incorporate engaging qualities, or is the objective aligned to grade level standards? Although these questions do seem important in the classroom setting, none of the questions get much deeper than that. They are all relatively surface level observations, and we believe that a teacher could potentially check all of those boxes, yet still have much to improve as an educator. Additionally, the evaluator only has the option to check yes or no when answering. This is a very black and white approach to teaching, and we believe that teaching is anything but black and white. So, as you can see, the SmartWalks evaluations could use some work. When preparing our proposal to improve it, we took special note of the fact that each student in a classroom of 20, give or take, will require different resources to be successful. This means that teaching methods can't fit into neat little boxes like the questions in SmartWalks, and in order to be an equitable teacher, we must be accommodating to all students that have the privilege of teaching. This is especially true for students with learning disabilities or those that require individualized education plans or IEPs. These students were the inspiration for our proposed improvement, as we suggest an additional section evaluating whether or not a teacher provides the least restrictive environment for special education students.
What is the least restrictive environment, or LRE? According to the textbook and School of Education, in 1975, Congress passed what is now called the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, ensuring every student with a disability has the right to a free and appropriate education. An LRE is a provision of this act, ensuring students with disabilities receive an education in an environment that is closest to a regular classroom environment.
A least restrictive environment is not a specific place or even a specific form of treatment by educators. It is entirely unique to every student based on their own needs. The only explicit requirements for a least restrictive environment are outlined in a report by the Iris Center as follows. Students with disabilities receive their education alongside their peers without disabilities to the maximum extent appropriate, and students should not be removed from the general education classroom unless learning cannot be achieved even with the use of supplementary aids and services. As you can see, based on the spectrum, also provided by the Iris Center, different learning environments can range from a general education classroom, the least restrictive, to a hospital or a residential facility, which is the most restrictive. An environment's level of restriction is based on its ability to provide the learner with peer engagement. As we can see, the more chances for the student to interact with peers, the less restrictive and therefore more beneficial the learning environment becomes. The reason that such a large emphasis is placed on LREs is because they allow students with learning disabilities to develop alongside other students their age, in turn aiding their social development and behavioral skills. It is also beneficial for their peers because they can learn the important lesson that everybody is different and we should be empathetic to all of their needs.
Benefits of an LRE are: children with disabilities are not unnecessarily segregated from their peers. They are included in regular classroom activities and experiences that enrich their learning experience they may not get outside of the regular classroom. They are able to socialize with students with diverse neurological and physical abilities. In doing this, students without disabilities get to know and learn from students with disabilities, and this reduces the stigma and ostracization of individuals with disabilities.
One example that we found of the least restrictive environment in full effect is Kayla. She's a 4-year-old girl in preschool in Minnesota. The school district and preschool names were not disclosed, but the article stated that Kayla would often begin the day at her main preschool and eventually be bused to a second preschool during the day for special services from special education teachers. Although this seemed best at first, her mother quickly noticed that Kayla was being negatively affected by this change. She was not getting the chance to play with her peers, learn to confidently interact with them, or feel comfortable approaching them. Her social skills were suffering because she was being separated from other students and being put in a more restrictive environment. After noticing this change, her mother suggested that she be reintegrated into the general education classroom, but still receive additional support alongside her peers. For Kayla, this was her least restrictive environment and it allowed her to flourish.
So what does an LRE look like? Here's an example of a regular classroom including special ed students. Children with disabilities can have necessary accommodations within the regular classroom. The teacher must integrate the students and their accommodations within the classroom setting and classroom dynamic. For example, the student on the far left uses a wheelchair. Thus, the teacher lets him sit at a desk that is not side by side with another desk, which allows him to have more space to move about. The student on the bottom needs a computer to assist with his reading and writing, so the teacher lets him use a laptop. The student to the left of the teacher is hard of hearing, so the teacher lets her sit closer to where he stands so she can hear him better. The student to the right of the teacher has ADHD, so the teacher lets her sit near him so he can help keep her on topic. Additionally, the teacher is fully including the special ed students in this classroom activity, asking all the students to brainstorm together. A Google norm this touches upon is impact. The special ed students know that their contributions to the class matter and make a difference.
So how can teachers and observers cooperate before and after the observation? So the teacher and observer can converse about what to expect during the lesson and specific things to look out for before the observation. The teacher can identify students with IEPs to focus on in order to gain more insight on how an LRE works in action. On the other hand, the teacher can choose not to identify those with IEPs to see if the observer can identify them themselves, which can show how an LRE can function like a regular classroom. After the observation preceding the lesson, the observer can share their findings with the teacher in order to make the classroom environment flow better by collaborating. The teacher can then use the SmartWalks document to improve their teaching to better incorporate special education students in the classroom to create a better, least restrictive environment. The evaluator can even speak with each individual student after class and see how they feel.
If we want to add this into our smart walks, we will need marks on which to judge if a teacher is doing an adequate job. Some questions that could be added to our new and improved smart walks are: is the teacher meeting the plans in the IEP? Are the students with IEPs being talked to like the other students? Are they sitting at tables alongside their peers? Are they being called on to answer questions, and do they feel safe answering them? Are concepts being dumbed down, or are they being presented like they are to other students? Additionally, the answers will be more than a simple yes or no. All answers by evaluators will be elaborate analyses of teaching methods in detail. This gives educators a better chance of actually learning from their evaluations.
There are many organizations that promote the least restrictive environment in classrooms. These include the IRIS Center at Vanderbilt University, the Education Center at American University, and the ASCD, or Association for Supervision and Curriculum Development, which all support and encourage LRE in classrooms. So the ASCD highlights the importance of instructional methods that are adapted to the needs of special education students and foster a learning environment that is cooperative and promotes socialization. American University advocates for least restrictive environment classrooms, stating that including special education students creates a high quality classroom and is worth the effort that teachers put in to make it so. The IRIS Center's mission statement is dedicated to improving the education of all children, especially those with disabilities, through many different actions. So another one of the Google norms that closely aligns with a least restrictive environment is psychological safety. Having an LRE in the classroom can strengthen this Google norm by encouraging comfortability with others, providing a safe space for all types of students, and breaking down the stigma of special education students. This can also inspire students to work together and take risks. So all in all, we believe that including a least restrictive environment section in the Smart Walks would benefit both teachers and students, especially those with IEPs. In our future classrooms, and hopefully yours too, we plan to create the least restrictive environment for all of our students in order to ensure their utmost quality of education.